My Lords, I rise chiefly to speak to Amendments 16 and 18 in my name, but I will also just briefly express my support for the general sentiments of Lord Lucas's Amendment number 15, although I would point out the fact that, generally speaking, what history has shown us as more evidence has been collected, we've found that regulations and restrictions are generally far too weak when they start out, and they need to be strengthened and strengthened further. And I would indeed question the case of his two examples, but I won't disappear into the weeds of those details. I will also just briefly express my support for the Amendment 43 in the name of the noble Lady Baroness Jones of Whitchurch, which was also signed by my noble friend Baroness Jones of Molescombe, which actually relates in some part to my amendments, because Amendment 43 talks about a statutory duty to meet interim targets. Which is where we get to my two amendments, which particularly starting with Amendment 18, starting with Amendment 16, which says there should be at least one interim target, because what we're talking about is 15 years or more targets. And we know, and I actually offer my thanks to that invaluable resource, the House of Lords Library, because I asked them to find out in the last century how many Secretaries of State have been in place for more than 10 years in a single post. And they came up with a list of two, Gordon Brown and Lord Mackay of Clashfern, both of whom were Chancellors. So there has been, the library tells me, no one else in post for more than 10 years in a single Secretary of State position. So we have a question here about responsibility. People having to take action to be able to demonstrate action over a relatively short period of time, because without reopening the debate of Monday about us being in a climate and biodiversity and environmental crisis, we are in a crisis and we need action quickly. And 15 years is a very, very long time. And if we're in a situation where that target is that far away, it's at a minimum 3 governments away. It may well, on current case studies, be considerably more governments away than that. And so it's very easy for that target to just not really be addressed, for not really to see progress. So that's why I'm suggesting there should be at least one interim target in that 15 years. Which brings me to my second amendment, which is 18, which says that these long-term targets should be not longer than 20 years. Because in my reading of the bill, and I'd be very interested if anyone can tell me wrongly, I don't claim to be a lawyer, it says targets will be at least 15 years away. There is no maximum target. And this bill, and we're talking about what's on the face of the bill, could allow the government to set a 50-year target for water pollution or biodiversity, which of course is no kind of target at all. So I think it's really important in what these amendments do. They're small and they're modest, and I won't necessarily say that I'm wedded to the particular numbers in them. They're an attempt to really open up the debate about the fact that we can't just say, right, here's a 15-year target, we can all sit back and worry about in 12 years' time where we've got to. We need to see targets set and with progress reporting towards them. And I'll just point out a situation where we do have interim targets set. This is the Committee on Climate Change, and its most recent reports show that they have set out the 4th and 5th carbon budgets, which run from 2023 to 2027 and 2028 to 2032 respectively. We're not on track to meet either of those. And that really, I think, demonstrates the importance of setting statutory interim targets and committing to delivery of those targets.